All right, let's talk about a book that is, well, everywhere. I'm talking about Stephen Covey's The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. This thing isn't just a book, it's a phenomenon. It's been in boardrooms and leadership seminars, you name it, for decades. But, these days, it's also getting a lot of heat, a lot of criticism. So that's the big question we're tackling. Is this a timeless framework for living a good life, or is it just some, I don't know, outdated formula? Let's get into it. And Covey kicks things off with this really powerful quote from Emerson. "What you are shouts so loudly in my ears, I cannot hear what you say." Think about that for a second. This whole book, right from the jump, is saying it's not about the quick fixes, the life hacks, the stuff you post online to look good. No, it's about who you are deep down. And this idea, it's the foundation for everything that follows. It's maybe the most important argument in the entire book. So before we jump into habit number 1, we've got to get our heads around Covey's big idea. He basically looked at the whole self-help world and said, you know what? We've taken a wrong turn somewhere. We started focusing on the superficial stuff, not the stuff that actually matters. And he didn't just pull this out of thin air. He went back and studied like 150 years of success literature in America. And what he found was this huge shift. The older stuff from the early days was all about what he called the character ethic. But then somewhere in the 20th century, the focus totally flipped to something he called the personality ethic.
And this contrast, this is everything to Covey. The character ethic is your foundation. Think of it like the concrete foundation of a house. It's about your integrity, your humility, your courage, the deep down stuff. It's about building yourself from the inside out. The personality ethic, that's just the paint job. It's your public image, the techniques you use, the smile you put on. And Covey's whole point is, without that solid foundation, the fancy paint job is just a quick fix. Eventually, the cracks are going to show, your real self will come through, and it'll all fall apart.
Okay, so here's something you really need to get about the 7 habits. They're not just some random checklist. Nope, they're a progression, a path. And the first 3 habits, habits 1, 2, and 3, Covey calls these the private victory. This is the first level, it's all about mastering yourself. It's the journey you take from being dependent on other people and situations to becoming truly independent. And it all kicks off with habit 1, be proactive. Now, this is way more than just, taking initiative. It means you are the one driving the car of your life. You are responsible. Stuff happens, right? But you get to choose how you respond. Covey says effective people put all their energy into their circle of influence. That's the stuff you can actually control. They don't waste time and energy getting stressed about their circle of concern, which is all the stuff you can't do a thing about. Which leads right into habit 2. Begin with the end in mind. And to get you to really feel this one, Covey uses this intense exercise. He asks you to imagine your own funeral. Seriously, picture it. Who's there? Who's getting up to speak? And what are they saying about you as a partner, a friend, a coworker? It's a bit grim, I know, but it's powerful because it forces you to cut through all the noise and figure out what really matters to you. It's about defining your own life's mission based on your deepest values, not just what society tells you to want. See, what he's pushing for here is what he calls a paradigm shift. It's a fancy term, but it just means a huge change in how you see everything. It's like realizing the map you've been using your whole life is just wrong. Instead of just trying to change your behavior, like hacking away at the leaves of a tree, you go to the root. You change the paradigm, the core belief, and then all the attitudes and behaviors start to flow from that new place. It's about making sure what you do every day actually lines up with the person you want to be. And all of that builds up to habit 3, put first things first. This is where the rubber meets the road. It's the practical habit of managing yourself. And you've probably seen his famous time management matrix with the 4 quadrants. Look, most of us live in quadrant I. It's the urgent and important stuff. The fires we're always putting out, the deadlines, the crises. But Covey says the really effective people, they make time. They force themselves to live in quadrant 2. That's the important but not urgent stuff. Things like building relationships, planning for the future, exercising, preventing problems before they start. That's where the magic happens. That's where you actually grow. Okay, so once you've done the work, once you've achieved that private victory, and you're independent and in control of yourself, only then can you move on to the next level. This is what Covey calls the public victory. We're talking habits 4, 5, and 6. This is where you go from being independent to being interdependent. It's all about building real, strong, productive relationships with other people. And the bedrock for all of this relationship stuff is a concept he calls the emotional bank account. It's such a great metaphor. Just think about it. In every relationship, you have an emotional bank account. When you're kind, when you keep your promises, when you're just decent, you're making a deposit. You're building up trust. But when you're disrespectful, when you break a promise, when you talk behind someone's back, you're making a big withdrawal. And it's simple, right? To have good relationships, you need a high balance in that account.
Which brings us to habit 4, think win-win. So many of us are programmed to think win-lose, right? For me to win, you have to lose. It's a competition. But Covey says there's a much better way. And win-win isn't just about being nice and letting people walk all over you. No, it's about being courageous enough to state what you need, but also considerate enough to listen to what they need. You're looking for a third way, a solution that works for everyone. And this whole idea is built on what he calls an abundance mentality, the core belief that there isn't just one pie we're all fighting over. There's plenty to go around for everybody.
Now, habit 5. This one is a game changer for so many people. Seek first to understand, then to be understood. Let's be honest. Most of us, we don't listen to understand. We listen to reply. The whole time someone is talking, we're just waiting for our turn, formulating our response, filtering everything they say through our own life. We're judging, we're advising, but are we really hearing them? Empathetic listening is the opposite. It's about shutting that part of your brain down and just focusing on them, maybe rephrasing what they said, reflecting their feelings back, until they feel truly heard. Covey calls it giving someone psychological air, and it's a profound gift. From there, we get to habit 6, Synergize. Okay, I know, synergy can sound like a cheesy corporate buzzword, but the idea behind it is awesome. It's about creative cooperation. It's that moment when you truly value that someone else sees the world differently than you do. Instead of fighting about it, you see it as a strength. Synergy is when you put your heads together and the solution you come up with is better than anything either of you could have imagined on your own. It's that classic idea, the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. 1 + 1 = 3 or 10 or 100. And that brings us to the last habit, the one that makes all the other 6 actually possible. Habit 7, sharpen the saw. Covey tells this great little story about a guy who's been sawing down a tree for hours and is getting nowhere. Someone comes along and says, "Hey, why don't you stop and sharpen your saw?" And the guy says, "I can't, I'm too busy sawing." We've all been that guy, right? The lesson is simple. You have to take time to renew yourself. And he says we need to do it in 4 areas: the physical, the spiritual, the mental, and the social/emotional. Because if you don't take care of yourself, your most important asset, all those other habits will eventually just fall apart. It's the engine that keeps everything running. So there you have it. That's the whole framework. And you can see why it's been so influential, right? But, and this is a big but, in today's world, this book is facing some serious backlash. So let's flip the coin and look at the modern critiques. Okay, one of the big ones you see all over the internet is basically, this is just obvious stuff. It's common sense dressed up in a bunch of corporate jargon. The argument goes that the book is totally bloated, just repeating the same obvious points over and over again, maybe just to hit a page count and sell more copies. Then there's a much sharper critique. This one basically says the book is a tool for corporations, maybe even cynical propaganda. From this angle, habits like be proactive and taking personal responsibility aren't about empowerment. They're about creating the perfect, submissive employee, someone who will blame themselves for problems instead of, say, looking at systemic issues in the company or, seeking solidarity with other workers. And you know what feeds right into that criticism? A super common experience. For a lot of people, they didn't just wander into a bookstore and discover the 7 habits. No, it was assigned reading. It was mandatory for a workbook club or a corporate training. And when it comes from your boss, it can feel a lot less like a tool for personal freedom and a lot more like a mandate from on high to just be more productive. So, how do we make sense of this? On the one hand, a book that has genuinely changed millions of lives. On the other, it's seen as obvious, bloated, even a little cynical. How can both be true? Well, the answer might be in how we look at the whole thing. And I saw this comment online that I think really nails it. It said, the book has one of the best frameworks out there, and that it's useful precisely because it's so obvious once you learn it. You can basically slot any other piece of self-help advice into the 7 habits framework, and that's it. Maybe the real magic isn't in any one single habit, but in the brilliant way they all fit together. It's the system. And that's really the key takeaway here, I think. Sure, any one of these habits on its own might seem a little, duh. Be proactive? Okay. Listen to people? Got it. But the genius isn't the list. It's the integrated system. Covey didn't just throw 7 ideas at us. He gave us a roadmap for personal growth, a logical path from mastering yourself to building great relationships, all powered by taking care of yourself. Which brings us full circle, right back to the beginning. So is it a rigid formula or a flexible framework?
Maybe it doesn't matter. Either way, the book forces us to ask a really big question. In a world that is just obsessed with personality hacks and quick fixes, what does it really take to build character?